Welcome to episode 7 of Women of Color and Confidence. My name is Amber Rose West. I will be your host, and today I am joined by Melissa Haile, who is the owner of Moss North Therapy in Colorado. She specializes in massage. I'm going to let her get into the details of what kind of holistic healing she does, focusing on prenatal and infant health and healing. Welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yay!
Thank you.
I know I gave you like a little bit of an introduction, but I would love for you to share with us from your own words who you are, what you do, your passions, and your business.
Sure. So my name is Melissa Haile, and I am a licensed massage therapist. I specialize in prenatal and infant massage. I am also a certified practitioner of Asian bodywork therapy. And what that means is that my focus is through the Korean lineage of homotherapy. And I focus on acupressure, self-care, gua sha, and also fire cupping.
Yes. So beautiful. I am so excited to talk to you about the different techniques and styles of healing. But I want to take it back just a little bit and talk about how you grew up. And you are from the East Coast, correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
Grew up in New York. Third generation. My father came from Jamaica. And he was much older than my mother. So, and then my great grandparents came to New York through Ellis Island. Mm-hmm. And no one ever left New York until my sister was the first one. She moved to Florida, and then I was the first one to move out here to Colorado, and that was last year.
What were the cultures or lineages of your grandparents, and then I guess your parents after them?
Yeah. So my grandparents, my mother is Jewish. So my grandparents, Russian, Polish, Austrian, Jewish. And so that's their lineage. And then, yeah, my father was from Kingston, Jamaica. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he was 30 years older than my mom. So
wow. Oh, when you met a lot of years.
So like really much older, not like so yeah, much older. And
how did they meet?
Like, well, she was like this wildflower child and in the East Village, and he was a jazz musician. He was actually friends with Miles Davis, and so they met in Tompkins Square Park in the East Village while they were just walking around, and and they fell in love and raised us. They moved from New York City, from Manhattan, and then moved us maybe 20 minutes outside of it, where we grew up in a Jewish neighborhood called Great Neck.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's so interesting. I love it. What was it like growing up in a household that had these different types of cultures? And I don't know if you were religious growing up, or what was that mesh like growing up for you?
So it was really interesting. My family, my father had ALS. So he was really sick. He was diagnosed when we were 6. And then he miraculously, like most people live like a year, he lived 13 years with that. Wow. And just a lot of love to persevere and be able to be there for us. Our mother, she was growing up in Great Neck. It was interesting for us. It was a little different. Mm-hmm. But growing up in a blended community, we grew up in a Jewish community where for us, we weren't practicing Jew. We were practicing Jewish, but culturally Jewish. Mm-hmm. And and so that was our background, and being in the environment of a Jewish neighborhood, that's really where we were able to get some of the traditions and celebrated Seder and Passover, some of the
Mm-hmm.
holidays. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely really interesting. We were able to have a very nice background of culture.
Mm-hmm. Did your like the holistic health aspect of your career, was that something that was instilled in you when you were growing up?
Yeah. So my whole family, they were all holistic. My grandmother had created a nonprofit organization. They actually created a documentary on it called Rethinking Cancer. And
Ooh.
so, yeah, and so she studied iridology, which is the study of the eyes and looking at different pathologies that could arise if we're looking at different capillaries or any different disease progression, and really looked at from the eyes, like able to see like what dietary changes need to be made, or like what you need to be aware of that you could be predisposed to. And so that she studied under Bernard Jensen, who is really the forefather of like the loofah, like scrubbing, and also created iridology, and also did a lot of fasting. And so that was my grandmother's side. She
Interesting.
also had, yeah, it was really interesting. And our aunt, who was an herbalist, and a nutritionist, she would also have like little hair samples for us. And so growing up, we would each have like different dinners. Like some of us could, like I could eat pretty much anything, and my sister couldn't. Like lucky for me, not for her. Uh, so like if she had too much protein, she couldn't have meat for the time, or um, she couldn't have dairy for certain times, like, because she would get allergic. And so like looking at the hair samples would kind of be a window as to like what we needed in our diets,
Yeah.
and then what vitamins to take. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was our upbringing.
It's so
Yeah.
cool, man. Hair tells a story. It always
Right.
does. I love that. So what was it like? Do you have any like outstanding memories of growing up, biracial, with a Jamaican father in this mostly Jewish community, that you can share with us?
Yeah. With my father, he was very sick, so he wasn't able to really. He was in a wheelchair, and he was very sick, so he wasn't able to really go out as much. And so my parents separated. My mom was also very young, and so then she decided really to embrace our culture. And like growing up in a neighborhood where it was predominantly Jewish, she found pockets of people that she found friends that were also other Jewish friends that also had biracial children. And so that was like the community. Like she brought us in, and like they would go out, and she was also a social activist.
Mm-hmm.
So this is during the apartheid era. And so during every Friday, she would bring us out to protest. And so until apartheid was, until Nelson Mandela was freed. But like that was kind of our upbringing. Like I think the only time she was dating,
Mm-hmm.
and she had my stepfather, and he in an area of Great Neck where like bringing children to your school, it was kind of like a car show. And like and here she rolls in with like stickers all over her car, and like my stepfather, who had dreadlocks down to his like really long dreadlocks, and it just like and it was just like, um that's who she was. Like it was just like she was just such an amazing, strong woman. So
Yeah.
it was just, yeah. But I do remember we stood out, but it didn't really have any effect. Like it was just something that we just were different than the other kid. Like, yeah.
How was your self-confidence growing up in that kind of environment? Did you find yourself struggling with it? It sounds like you were kind of created a little knit, a little pocket of people that you could relate to and align with. So like, what was your confidence like as you were growing up um, in this community?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like she really found a way, her friends, um, even like she did have a lot of Jewish friends that were still like very engaged with what she was doing. And so whether they were other biracial children for us to play with or friends that she had that were like, very engaged with the movement of what she believed in, that really stuck to her core.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's kind of how, I guess, that was our normal. And um, it didn't, I don't think it ever, our confidence is pretty good. Um, I mean, as a girl growing up, that's a different story. Sometimes, you have the certain, is different, maybe going through puberty a little bit earlier could have been a little awkward,
Yeah.
but, but that may have been something that was, could have been uncomfortable, but and I did have moments where I remember my earliest recollection that like something was that we were a little different may have been when I was 6, and like one of the kids in the class asked if I was adopted. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that, and I didn't understand what that meant. That was the first time I remember like learning that.
Uh-huh.
Even though being adopted is amazing, but they thought that because our mother was a different color, was white, and so
Yeah.
but it was just a learning process. Like it was
Yeah.
never anything that made us feel bad about who we were.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how kids can be the first one to be like, that's different. What's going on
Yeah.
here? And just like, even as another little kid, you're like, what are you talking about? We have these like, I feel like as children, and then as we get old, like the older we get, we have our own little microcosm that we see. So when people start pointing things from the outside, we're like, whoa, wait a second. But yeah, I too, actually, I used to have kids at my school who I went to the same school for a very long time, so it didn't happen very often. But when people first saw my mother and realized she was white, they'd be like, no, but where's your mom?
Yeah.
Her. It's still her. um, that's so interesting. Okay, so how did your upbringing and your household influence your career path, and how did you get on that career path?
So yeah, I was trying to do, I loved art, and I thought that I would study fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so this was right after high school. I had gone into fashion college, and um, I had prepared for that, like doing my portfolio, and so by the time I got into fashion college, I had too much fun. Like it wasn't like I could really settle down and so I probably, now a lot of students do gap years, and they have like, there was some maturity that I probably needed.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had always done massage at home. That was always like, for me, that was anytime my mom had a headache, I always massaged her.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime my grandfather had problems with his, had foot problems, I would help massage. And so that was something that was like very natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I realized that fashion college wasn't for me, I kind of did like a little bit of a deep dive to try to figure out like what it was that would be for me professionally. And my aunt suggested, why don't you go to massage school? And I thought like, okay, great. That sounds wonderful. Like, well, I'll just go, I'll just go and see my friends and then come back and get massages in school. Like, that's a great idea.
Yep.
So I went in, and somehow, and this is when the universe when you're in the right place, I truly believe like when you're in the right place, that the universe kind of brings you, and you're, kind of makes things happen
Yeah.
that are supposed to. It facilitates what's supposed to happen. And I just so happened to join a school that was founded by, that was still being run by the founder, and who had studied Korean lineage-based massage from her family, who came here from Korea, and who was brought here into New York and taught a specific set of students, and all those students were my teachers. That school has since completely changed, but having that learning, being taught how to heal intuitively, being able to being taught this traditional ancient healing art of Amma, which they don't even teach, they don't really teach anymore, was really a gift. And that really kind of set my path for massage. So, yeah.
It's so special. I love it. It's such like a kismet type journey where it just like, it kept, along the way, it just kept finding you exactly what you needed. And so you started your business in Long Island, right? Awesome. And what was I guess my point blank, my question is, what was the cultural diversity like in your business there? And I know that you brought your business here. So I kind of would love to hear what it was like starting your business there culturally, racially, and what brought the transition to Colorado, and what is it like culturally and racially here in comparison?
Sure. So I started my business in Long Island, in Cold Spring Harbor, this beautiful old whaling town in Long Island. And it was a 3,400 square foot spa with a yoga studio and 4 treatment rooms, or 5 treatment rooms, with massage and aesthetics and nails, and it was just a really beautiful space. It was right across from the green belt, so there were a lot of events that we did. And it was a really, not as diverse as New York City, but we did attract a lot of people that kind of would come out from Long Island or come out from New York for specific events that we did that weren't always available to the community. So we would have artists within, that would come out and do, or special yoga teachers. We have it was a really beautiful space. And this was before the recession. And so right after the recession, of course, all the products that I had were very high end. And so it didn't really work out at that time.
Yeah.
So I came out to New York and lived there came out to Manhattan and worked in the spa industry for a little while. And then always did massage. That was always something that was always part of it. I worked as the lead spa therapist for Haile. So I worked there. That being said, the progression, I ended up, and I also taught massage as well. And so right before we had right after our daughter, I have a 2-year-old, and when she was a year, 9 months old, we decided that New York, as much as we love it, as much as we love living in the city, was just really, it's difficult raising a child for us in an area where we're constantly having to worry about parking. So having a car is a nightmare. And we're constantly worrying about, taking the train and knowing where the subway, knowing where the elevator is, the subway, and having, so it was just a little stressful.
Yeah.
Coming out here, we decided to come to Denver. We fell in love with it. The mountains were beautiful. The vision of being able to, of our daughter being able to be in a fresh environment where she's able to really learn about nature, and really be embraced by all of the beautiful things that Colorado has to offer, is really what drew us here. And not as diverse but I will say that in New York, you take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
This diversity that you don't, it's not as much embraced.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just, the typical competition or, you know, it's not as an embraced um, way. And I feel like Denver, Colorado
Yeah.
seems like there isn't as much diversity, but
Mm-hmm.
there's much more appreciation and there's much more of a sisterhood or a brotherhood. Like it just seems much more closer.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like, you know, it makes me really hopeful for her. It makes me and my husband really hopeful for her that we have her in a, you know, in a great environment to raise her.
Yeah.
Um, that's going to be safe for her.
Yeah. It's been really interesting. I've been in Colorado for a little 2.5 years. And I felt like there was no cultural diversity, but it's very interesting when you do find people of color, Black people, you're just like, oh, you are here. And there is that instant bonding that happens, knowing that they are here, they're around. They just kind of have created their own spaces that aren't necessarily as popular as some of the other bigger, broader, you know, breweries, bars, you know, place organizations and stuff that reside here. So yeah, it's nice to hear that that's been your experience here. And I do think that that's something that is growing and expanding. Like the more we talk about it, and especially with the activism that has been here because of Elijah McClain, that there's become more I was going to say transparency, but that's not the word. There's been more, we've been able to see more people of color than we would have because there's been activism here. We're actually in the street. We're asking for change. We're marching. We're out there. So
Yes.
beautiful. So I am such a big, like, there's such a big part of my heart that goes out to every woman who starts their own business. I know that it's not an easy feat. I know that a lot of the things that we see, you know, in your spot on social media, it's very like beautiful, but creating a business at times can be really unsexy. And it's like a lot of hard work. It's a lot of marketing. It's a lot of connection, community building, and those kinds of things. So I'm curious, what are one or a couple moments that you're most proud of when it comes to the business that you've built?
Yeah. I I would say starting out, when it was my original spa, um, with Moss, one thing that I was really proud of was being featured in Departures magazine
Mhm.
and having my work compared to Deepak Chopra. So like having, and that was
Yes.
like, oh wow, I'm on, you know, having my butterfly ceremony that I did being in comparison to what Como Shambhala does. And so that, you know, that was like, you know, feeling successful, like feeling like that was recognized, and I'm really proud of that. And
So
here,
cool.
yeah. I would also say on a personal level, working with clients, like just the other day of hearing like a client that who I really love, who, you know, I have been working with, and you know, like there was one thing that they needed a little bit more help than I could do, and so I referred them to somebody, and immediately it like what they needed was fulfilled, and
Mhm.
so that show it's like it, you know, that feels like success to me because that's something that makes me really proud of, like being working with my core and my intuition,
Yeah.
and not moving through my ego, you know, that like that makes me really proud. And personally, my beautiful children, so Skyla,
Yeah.
she's going to be 2, and my son is also really, you know, he's going to be 22. So like having beautiful children, my husband having a beautiful husband who's supportive,
Mhm.
um, you know, those are personal things that really make me proud.
Yes. I love, it feels like there's so much, you know, family oriented energy around you and in your intention and your drive. I wanted to ask you, what what influenced going into like specifically like prenatal or toddler type healing work? Was it this family? And I love the family energy you have around you, but was it that family energy, or was it something different that kind of guided you towards natal?
I've always been really fascinated by natal.
Mm-hmm.
Even starting out as a massage therapist was something that I really loved. You know, I had a midwife, I had a doula.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I myself am also a doula.
So am
And
I.
so yay!
I'm a labor doula, but I've very much been interested more in postpartum work for a lot of other reasons. But yeah, it's been when you told me that you did natal, I was like, that also has a little spot in my heart too.
It's such a powerful thing, like supporting women and like supporting families, like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just that energy of like, and that transitional energy of being there to like guide them and support them and be that comfort, and even supporting their husbands or their wives, you know, they're supporting their families as
Mm-hmm.
they're going through this big transition of, and being there, that support person. So like prenatal and
Mm-hmm.
postpartum, it's all heart work.
Mm-hmm.
So
So wonderful. I love it. This is, there's something, I mean, obviously I'm like have my heart with women in a lot of the projects that I do. And that transition of like giving birth is one of those things that like it's always been a little bit challenging for me to wrap my mind around. Like you created a baby and now you're going to bring it to the earth plane, and I love being around it, I love being near it, but it's also kind of like we are so freaking special. Like it's such a beautiful thing, and to be able to support that transition for whoever it is that's giving birth and whoever it is that support them is such it's just a gift in itself, I think. And
yeah.
I love being around those like those healing aspects of support, which is a lot of what your work is too. So it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what gives you inspiration?
Inspiration, knowing that I'm making a difference, and knowing that, and I know that's like so cliche, but like knowing that I'm bringing peace to people's lives, knowing that I'm helping them remove discomfort from their lives, that I'm removing stress from their lives, and knowing that I'm providing access for them to feel supported.
Yes. It's really beautiful. I often think that because of the stereotypes that surround Black women, that it can be hard for them to get in this space of believing that they have healing powers. And I'm always telling Black women, I'm like, you have the ultimate healing powers. It's Black girl magic. It's a real thing. And
Yes.
to kind of embrace that and be willing to share it. I know it becomes kind of this, especially in the USA, right? A bit of a dangerous bit to share. It's very vulnerable and people take advantage of it, right? But I just love watching women in their magic serving to heal, which is one of the reasons I was really excited to have you on the show and to chat about what that creation was like, from growing up, and like that culturally infused health and healing. It's something that like comes from your lineage. It came from your family. It came from the origins and families of the people that you learned from. And that's like no little thing to shake your hand at, it's really wonderful. I'm curious how you would describe your confidence now as a business owner and a mother and a partner. Tell me what your confidence is like.
I would say for me, it's really in listening to and a lot of the times, and this is even growing up, like your children are taught, or adults are taught to listen to what other people are telling them to do. And so some people get into the fields that they shouldn't be getting into because they want to, they want to make people happy, and they're not really stopping and intuitively listening to the guides like listening to what our universal energy is. And I do speak very woo, but
Mm-hmm.
what our universal guides are telling us, like where do we belong? What do we need to do? And that's the confidence. The confidence is knowing that what I'm doing resonates with what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Yes.
like having the opportunity to stop and really listen to where I need to be and have faith that when I'm making, even if that means leaving a position, like maybe I'm doing something, making a shift,
Yeah.
leaving New York and coming here, whatever it is, like making that change and following where those guides are bringing us.
Yes. Yes. This is actually something that I teach. I call it soul guided confidence, where
Yes.
your confidence comes from, like what's inside of you and how you follow your dreams, you follow yourself, you follow your passions, your love, like your guides into it because you're listening to what your soul is telling you, what it has to offer you. And that is so beautiful. It's something that I believe in our society we miss because we've been taught to constantly look outside ourselves for answers. And like with the Google reviews and
Yeah.
let me just check that, like let me ask all my Facebook friends what they think of this before I watch it. Like it's just like all of these external answers that we are listening to without realizing that, like, our heads, our hearts, our souls, our spirits, they have answers for us. And it's okay to like tap back in and listen to what's up. I love that you create your confidence from that place because I really do feel like it's a diminishing art.
Yes.
I
I'm
want to
getting
encourage
chills.
more women to get back into that. It feels so good.
It does. It's a happy place, and you're being doing soul work and doing what you need, trusting,
Yes.
just having that faith.
Yes. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me today. I absolutely enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about you, but I am like calm. I feel like this was a healing session for me.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for showing up. For those of you who are in the Colorado area, please take a moment to look up Moss North. Is it Moss North Therapy?
Yes.
Moss North Studio. Moss North Therapy. Book your session. I actually was on your website today and was like, I'm excited to
Well, come in.
come in. Thank you for being here with me today, Melissa. It was a joy, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you.
Yes,
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for what you do. It's beautiful.
absolutely. My gift to the world. I just want to thank everybody that hopped online to watch us on the Book of Faces. Next week on Wednesday, I'm going to be having a roundtable discussion with a couple of Black women, and we are going to talk about hair. Our hair growing up, our hair as it is now, and why it is that you can't touch it. So I hope that you will join me next Wednesday, the 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as we are closing this up, Melissa mentioned something that I think is really important, this idea of soul-guided confidence. And I wanted to give a quick reminder that last week I launched my free video series, Clean Up Your Confidence, which is an 11 video free series that actually helps you tap into your personal self-confidence so that you can start living it from a soul-guided place. I will drop it in the description of this show, but I think it was a perfect place to end because it is something that has been on my mind and on my heart, and therefore I created this video series for you to enjoy and share with your friends and family. So make sure to check that out. It has been an awesome interview hanging out with all of y'all, and I will see you next Wednesday.